everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Backstage. I'm your host, Gianna, and today we have the pleasure of being joined by media personality, professional wrestling announcer, and now best-selling author, McKenzie Mitchell. McKenzie, congrats and welcome in.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, as I mentioned, I'm sorry I'm in my car. I'm on the road a little bit, so you got to make it work. You got to make the interview times work, right?
Of course, understood. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us. And as you can see, we have a copy of your new book, Threads and Triumph, here with us. And I cannot wait to talk about it. But first, I really want to get into your background a little bit. So
Okay.
before getting into the crazy world of pro wrestling, what is your background in sports and media?
So, my family always jokes that before I could walk and talk, I had a microphone in my hand. So when I was young, at like 3 years old, I loved performing. I've loved being in the spotlight, I should say. I knew I wanted to do something in broadcast or something that pertained to media. I just didn't know exactly what that would be. I went to school at the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, hotty toddy, where I got a broadcast degree, broadcast journalism degree. And so that's where I really started the foundation of my career. Um, I was working with the athletics program at the time when I was getting my degree with Ole Miss athletics. So I was doing kind of sideline reporting interviews with Scout.com. I also was the MC for all the baseball, basketball, football games. So I was the girl that was in the middle of the arena asking the trivia questions, having that real life experience before I even graduated. And then once I graduated from college, I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, where I began working with TNA wrestling. I knew absolutely nothing about professional wrestling, but learned it all on the fly, truly, and did all of my homework to figure it out.
So you used to mention how you moved like to Nashville and then that's how you got into wrestling. So how did you like get involved in that? Was it just like a job opportunity that popped up and you took it?
Yeah, so my athletic director at the time at Ole Miss, his name was Ross Bjork. He and I worked closely together when I was working with the athletics program. He and I had a conversation before I was graduating, and he said, "Mackenzie, what do you want to do? You have all this experience in sports and media and entertainment that you've gotten over time through your experience at school. And I wanted to move to Nashville and work in sports, entertainment, or music. I didn't know exactly what that meant for me at the time. And he set up an interview with Dixie Carter and John Gaboric, which were the heads and the presidents, I should say, of TNA wrestling at the time. He kind of, when he said professional wrestling, I said, my first response was, "Are you kidding? Like, what? What do you mean professional wrestling? I know nothing about professional wrestling." And he said, "Yeah, I think this would be a great opportunity." I had my interviews. They wanted to hire me immediately before I'd even graduated college at the time. And I said, "Let me graduate. Let me at least get my degree, and then I will make my way to Nashville." So I ended up finding myself in a very lucky opportunity. I think a lot of people in broadcast, we hear all the time that there's so many people that have a broadcast degree, but they don't get to put it to use. But for me, I actually was able to take all that money that my parents spent and all that time that I invested in a broadcast degree and apply it immediately after college, which I feel very lucky for.
Yeah, I guess with an opportunity like that, I would be doing my homework too, making sure I know everything about pro wrestling, even if
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a topic I cared
And
about
you
before.
know what? It was a lot harder than I expected. I laugh now that my first live interview was with Jeff Hardy on a Facebook Live. That was a 30-minute Facebook Live. I had no business of interviewing Jeff Hardy at that point in my career. And now Matt and Jeff and I, we've known each other for 10 years. We laugh about it now because thought that back then I had no idea who Jeff Hardy was, all of their accomplishments, what the Hardy Boys have done. And so yes, it was a learning experience, I should say, in real time of doing those live interviews, having those live television hits, but also just going into YouTube and diving deep into who the characters were, the talent were. Drew McIntyre, what does he look like? I guess, yeah, Drew McIntyre, Drew Galloway at the time at TNA. Where did he come from? What was his story? What did he like? What didn't he like? So I did a lot of my research, and I'm thankful I did that because it helped set me up for my entire career.
Yeah, the pressure really pushed you to work hard for where you are now, obviously.
That's right. That's right. Starting at TNA, I'm very thankful for my time then, and then being able to transition to the WWE, and then finding myself back at TNA. I certainly am glad that I had all of those life experiences to bring me to where I am now, 10 years in the business.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about where you are now, obviously, with this incredible book, Threads of Triumph. So, how did you come up with such a unique name?
Oh, the name. I really wanted it to feel that it was a perfect intersection between fashion and professional wrestling. I think this book was meant to be a first ever conversation, which it truly is. No one has talked about the gear aspect in professional wrestling really ever. I had this idea. I pitched it to the WWE for about WWE and other coworkers, other corporate businesses, I should say, for about 6 years. And it never came to fruition. It was something that I was really passionate about, but I never got the opportunity to explore that option, to do that when I was signed with TNA, the WWE, the first time. Um, and so I thought, you know what? When I got released in 2023 from the WWE, I said, I'm going to try this on my own. I'm going to see what happens and I'm going to start these conversations. So I had Threads with McKenzie Mitchell, which is my podcast, my YouTube series, which dove into the closets of some of your favorite professional wrestlers, musicians, celebrity figures. And people really loved it. They loved these conversations. They loved these little untold truths that came out. And so I was sitting down with Natalia and interviewing her. And she said, "McKenzie, you need to write a book." And I'm like, "Natty, I have no business in writing a book. Like, what would I do and what would this book be about?" And she was like, "Exactly this concept." So I wrote a 30-page book proposal, got a literary agent. We shopped the idea to a few publishers, and I had 4 offers in 2 weeks on the concept of Threads of Triumph. So it reiterated to me that um, there was a need, there was a niche and a need out there to be filled. So threads, obviously, when we talk about our clothing, some call it drip, some call it threads. So threads made sense for me. And then the book is meant to kind of highlight some of these professional wrestlers' biggest moments in their capstone events. And we talk about these moments as triumphant. We talk about these triumphant moments of winning the title or going back and remembering what that feels like to have your favorite moment almost feel like nostalgia. So Threads of Triumph was just a beautiful way to put it all together into one.
Yeah, so fashion is obviously not only a major part of the story of professional wrestling, but it's also a story of self-discovery and self-expression. And I've seen your Instagram page and you have some amazing looks, by the way. But can you also talk about your personal fashion inspirations and some of the trends that you leaned on while growing up?
Absolutely. So I think it's funny. A lot of people don't know this that my mom owned a boutique for 10 years in my small hometown of Dexter, Missouri. And then she was in the shoe and fashion industry for about 10 years after that. So my mom would always tell me when I was younger, like, "Oh, McKenzie, you should wear Ugg boots. They're gonna be the thing." And I'm like, "Mom, no one's wearing Ugg boots at school." Or what about these rock revival jeans or these flare jeans? I'm like, "No, no, Mom, no one's wearing this at school." So I had the opportunity to be in front of the trends before the trends were things, but I didn't really necessarily want to listen to my mom at the time. So I've always had this echo in the back of my mind of something in the fashion industry, whether it's my family. And later in my life, I kind of figured out my own fashion, what I love in fashion, I should say. And so for me, I like to ask people, because I design jewelry as well. For me, what I like to think about is I find my favorite celebrity figures and who I like to model, I should say. And I do this with anybody. I love following the fashion steps of Dua Lipa and Casey Musgraves. So for me, that's kind of the perfect blend of people that I see in the pop culture world, in the celebrity world, and I make it my own. Someone said to me the other day, "I love your outfit. It feels very McKenzie coded." And I'm like, I don't really know exactly what that means, but I'm doing something. I'm setting some kind of example, and people are expecting me to wear specific things or something that feels McKenzie coded week in and week out on television. So, yes, for me overall, it's Dua Lipa and Casey Musgraves, a fun blend of both of them, which kind of created my own style.
Yeah, I definitely get the like people having their own vibe and style because I say it to a couple people in my class. I'm like, your outfit is so like you coded, and then, like I correlate it to like the music they listen to or like the stuff they do outside of school, and like it just makes sense to me.
And it does. And I think that that's what's so unique about style is it's not just what you wear, it's how you're wearing it and it's the story that's being told. And that was why this book really made so much sense to me to tell these stories because we find out inside hidden gems of why Shawn Michaels truly became the Heartbreak Kid. And we find out how many masks Rey Mysterio actually owns and why Mick Foley never washed his mask. Like there's all these little hidden messages in these moments that you think these celebrities or these wrestlers have done countless interviews over time, but nobody had asked them about their gear. So I thought, this is my opportunity. This is my thing in professional wrestling to tell this story of fashion and professional wrestling in one.
Yeah, it's like the little questions you can get a little backstage, like sneak peek on what actually goes on that they're not just like openly saying.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So while working in pro wrestling, what are some of the coolest outfits that you saw that inspired you to write this book?
Wow. There's so many, and I always say people like to ask me who's the greatest of all time and who has the best looks. And I think that it's all opinionated, it's all our own point of view because we all have our own individual style and what we think is cool and what we don't think is
Yeah, for
cool.
sure.
Some people that have blown me away, I think Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch and what they did in working with King Troy. They knew what they were doing. They got a stylist. They wanted to show up week in, week out looking like $1 million. We remember when Seth was wearing these big red boots on screen, and then he had for WrestleMania in Hollywood, he was wearing this big pink red tulle jacket thing that with a harness on his stomach. Like we remember these moments, I think, and a lot of them I have to give credit, like I said, to King Troy, who's created this. He's done the work behind the scenes. Seth Rollins says he's the visionary. He is, but he has a team behind him that helps him put the vision together. So Seth Rollins, Becky Lynch, some of her, one of my favorite looks of hers is when she's wearing a jacket and she called herself the goat. And so she had physical, like stuffed animal goats on her shoulders, which was so representative of what she was doing and the story she was telling at that time. And then again, if we're talking modern day, Bianca Belair a couple years ago did these beautiful red roses in her entrance, which she had at WrestleMania, and that was something I feel like was very Bianca, and it felt very. It was very symbolic of her career and the red lips, but it felt more elevated in her WrestleMania moment. And then if we go backwards and we think of Macho Man Randy Savage and all of the things that he did, all of his iconic looks in professional wrestling, that's why I chose for him to be on the cover of the book because Macho Man Randy Savage wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the tallest, he wasn't the thickest, like he wasn't the strongest, but he always made sure that his presentation was something to be remembered. He made a whole different conversation of what sequins could be on clothing. And so some of those favorite moments, WrestleMania 7 of his is something that's iconic that I think about all the time. But there's so many different moments in professional wrestling that are great and these looks that have came to life that I feel like we could talk about this all day.
So out of all of those that you just listed, would you say you have a like number one top favorite of all time?
I don't think I have a number one top favorite. I think I have a handful of favorites. But I think if we're talking like legendary things that are iconic that people still are remembering today, and I think that, again, not to get sidetracked on this, but that's everyone has a favorite moment in professional wrestling. Everyone has a favorite match and how that made them feel, how that match or that moment made them feel. But not a lot of people remember every move that happened in the match or every word that was said, but you certainly remember what they wore and how you felt in that entrance and when they were showing up as this larger than life superstar. So I think that that's a key point in this conversation of Threads of Triumph is that people are remembering these attires in a feeling of nostalgia of their favorite moment in professional wrestling. I think if we're talking about number one, I mentioned that WrestleMania 7 with the purple and the white with Macho Man Randy Savage. It's just so iconic in his the retrospect of his career. And so that's probably one that I think felt so appropriate for Macho Man Randy Savage and one that we're still talking about today.
I got you. Okay, I'm gonna throw you a little bit of a curveball.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Do you have a least favorite, like your worst of all time that you've ever seen?
Least of all time. Listen, I think least of all time is a harsh, hard way to think about something. I think a lot of people try things, and that's the beauty of professional wrestling is you can try things and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Let's think about Kit Wilson, who was just on the sideline, wasn't really doing much. He had this brilliant theme song. Now he's wearing these big pearls on his neck and these elaborate sequin outfits. These moments allow for you to try things in professional wrestling. So I think sometimes things are really big hits and sometimes they're really big misses, but that's the beauty of the journey is being able to say, okay, did it work with this audience? Did it work at this time? No, it didn't. We tried it. Now we pivot and we move on to something else. So I think NXT allows for that a lot of the times as well. I worked at NXT for so long, 5 years. So it allows for people to try things, and that's what's a cool part of it, of trying and seeing what works.
I think that's a really good answer. I like the way you worded that is like it's not necessarily bad, more so just not directed towards a specific crowd.
Totally, totally. And it's all timing, right? Like, as I talk about my book, if I would have done this book 5, 6 years ago, I don't think it would have been the project in which I imagined. But now, because I've done it on my own. It was exactly how I imagined it. I wrote every single word. And it was all done in perfect timing. I can't imagine, like I said, doing it 5 years ago. It wouldn't have been this. It wouldn't have been the project. It wouldn't, I don't think, have gotten the love and admiration that it's gotten. It needed time to grow and to kind of be moldable to be able to figure out what exactly it needed to be. And now Threads of Triumph is born, and I think born in perfect time.
For sure, all things work together for the good. So it sounds like all of that kind of molded together and like just brought it all together.
That's right. That's right.
So is there anything else that you would like to add about the book? Maybe how you were feeling when you first released it, or some of the stories in this book on some of the wrestlers are just like incredible.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that this book has been interesting because it provides a big question mark for so many people, even from the talent that are in the book or fans that are unsure of what the book actually is. So I think it's really interesting as I've been on this book tour and I've sold a few copies that people will open it and they're like, dude, this is exactly like was I didn't know what to expect, but now that I've seen it, it's a really cool concept. Having the likes of Seth Rollins come up to me and say, like, oh, when we opened it up the package, it was the perfect blend of fashion and wrestling. It was exactly what you wanted it to be, and it came to life. And Rey Mysterio talking to me for 30 minutes and wanting to take the time to really read through it, or Kofi Kingston reading it with his kids. And that's what this book was meant to do. It was meant to be a book for all kinds, not just the day one wrestling fans, who think they know everything about their favorite professional wrestler. It's also made for those who are trying to understand the wrestling industry, or kids who maybe one day want to become a professional wrestler or get into the industry and learn how to connect to an audience. So I think that that's been a really fun takeaway from the book, is that people are enjoying it and it's made for everyone, not just for a specific demographic.
Yeah. So would you say that you would ever write a new, like another book or try something different when writing a book?
Girl, I'm already thinking about it. I've already thought about a volume 2, and I feel
Oh,
like there were
bet.
so many that I missed in the first book because the book is 248 pages. So there's only so many talent that we can feature in the book without it becoming so enormous. So I would love to do a volume 2. And I'd love to figure out, because there's so many new generation of superstars. If we go back and we have Macho Man Randy Savage on this cover, then who could be on the cover of volume 2, and who could be on the cover of volume 3, which provides a really unique perspective to it. So I've thought about that. I've also thought about a few other concepts of books. If I would have thought I would want to be a forever author before I started writing this book, I would be like, nope, I don't think so. But now it's been fun watching this journey and really connecting to people in a different way outside of broadcast, has been really, really cool for me.
Do you have any examples of like who you would like to like spotlight in the next book or maybe who would be on the cover? If you can
Yeah,
say, if you can say.
yeah, I think it was really hard deciding as we got into the last chapter of the book, because it's modern music, muses and mavericks. And I think there's so many people that are still evolving and creating their legacy in professional wrestling when it comes to the current superstars. But one person I really wish I would have incorporated in volume 1 is Charlotte Flair. I think she has been so instrumental in so much of the women's movement in professional wrestling. And I think that she's got so many iconic looks that, yes, it's generational for her, with her dad with the robes and then her with the robes. And she is implemented in a small amount with Ric Flair and the stories that we've told on his feature page. But I'd love to give Charlotte what she deserves, and maybe someone like Bailey, if we're talking about the women. I think that they deserve a spot in volume 2. Um, There's so many different people that I could go in that I've thought about over time. I'd also love to give love to managers and broadcasters. Jimmy Hart had some of those iconic blazers in all of time. And he always wore blazers that were perfectly accompanying who he was managing at the time. So I think there's so much to explore and so much that we could do with a volume two.
That's really exciting. I agree. I think there's always more to uncover, and the wrestling world is so big. Like obviously, like you said, you can dive into those behind the scenes as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Mackenzie, thank you so much for joining us today for this special interview. Where can people purchase your book and search you up, like social media, websites, anything?
On pretty much every social media but Twitter, I'm Mackenzie in Mitchell. Twitter has too many characters, so I'm Mackenzie in Mitch, which is kind of crazy. Um, and my link in bio is where you can purchase Threads of Triumph, but Threads of Triumph is available at Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Books A Million, your favorite retailer, so you can pick up a copy wherever you find your books.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, again, we want to thank the incredible Mackenzie Mitchell for joining us today for this special episode of Backstage. Mackenzie, thank you so much again for your time. And be sure to check out her incredible book, of course, Threads of Triumph, available now. And for PC3 Media and Backstage, I'm Gianna Zikkos, and we will catch you next time.